Well, we will just go ahead and get started so we don't go over too much longer in time, and hopefully other people will be joining us. This program will be recorded and able to be viewed on our website afterwards. I just want to introduce myself again. My name is Kelly Moore. I'm one of the Adult Services Librarians at Carrollton Public Library. Welcome to our stress management program tonight. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. As I mentioned, the program is being recorded, and if you need to leave for any reason, you can watch it later. The Q&A will not be live during the program, but the chat is open. If you have any questions for the presenter during the session, please put them in the chat, which will be monitored, and we will get to those at the end. She's going to allow some time for some Q&A. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenter, who is Dr. Neelofer Basaria. She's a scientist, holistic health coach, meditation and yoga teacher, and founder of her company, True Living. Her passion is to work with people to help them achieve a healthy and balanced life. Her formal education includes a Master of Science in Biochemistry, which allowed her to acquire a deep understanding of the workings of the human body at the cellular level. She then went on to study population health and behavior change and obtained her Master's in Science in Health Promotion, followed by a doctorate in public health practice. She has over 20 years of experience in the area of health and wellness, and tonight she's going to discuss tips for stress management, living mindfully, and will offer a meditation session as part of the presentation. Dr. Basaria, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kelly, for the introduction. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I would also like to say thank you to the Carrollton Public Library for organizing this event, and for those who were attending. Thank you for attending. My hope is to leave you with some important nuggets today that can help you to deal with the stressful situations in your life a little bit more effectively. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen here. And Kelly, let me know when you see it. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we see your screen.
Okay, awesome. So let's jump right into the presentation. So here are the learning objectives of today's presentation. First, in our part one of the presentation, we will talk about stress. What are some sources of stress in our lives, and why different people react differently to similar kind of stressors. So we will not only talk about stress from a psychological perspective, but we will also talk about stress from an energy perspective, from a spiritual perspective. And then in part two of the presentation, we will talk about what happens to our body when we are going through a stressful situation, and how chronic stress shows up in our body. Then we will also talk about what happens to our body when it is relaxed, biochemically, physiologically, what goes on in the body, and what are some ways, some methods, some techniques to induce relaxation in our body. And then in the third part of the presentation, we're going to take a real life example, and we will summarize the presentation by going through whatever we have learned in the presentation, how we can apply that in a real life situation. And then towards the end, we will engage in a practice of relaxation and mindfulness so that you can experience that for yourself today, and then take that practice with you and use it in your everyday life so that you can deal with stressful situations a little bit more effectively. So on to the part one of the presentation. Let's begin with identifying the sources of stress. So if you can use the chat box and let me know, what are some sources of stress in your life? What causes stress in your life? So anyone, any situation, anything that causes stress for you in your day-to-day life? And if somebody can read from that chat responses, I would appreciate it, because again, when I go in the presentation mode, I cannot see the chat for some reason. Let me see if I can.
Someone has mentioned work, lack of sleep, things that lie outside the control.
Lack of sleep, work, very good. Something that is they're unable to control.
Mhm.
So what I have done here is I've given you some sources of stress, and these are the sources from some of the major categories of stress. So there are some environmental stressors that we encounter, such as accidents, a pandemic that we are all going through and which has caused a lot of stress for all of us. Extreme weather condition. These are all environmental factors, environmental sources of stress. Then there are some physiological sources, such as what you mentioned, sleepless nights, insomnia, or not eating the right food for our body. These are physiological stressors. Then there are some interpersonal stressors that we encounter. So stresses in our relationships, dealing with people. Then there are some intrapersonal sources of stress, which is thinking that I'm not good enough or I don't have enough. Some of those beliefs that we carry and some of those feelings that we feel, they also cause a lot of stress. So now, since we have identified the sources of stress, let us talk about what is stress. So according to the Mental Health Foundation, stress is the feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope with mental or emotional pressure. So here we are taking a psychological perspective on stress by saying that the feeling of being overwhelmed or as being unable to cope with the pressure that our mind or emotions create. So now let's dig a little deeper and see why our mind creates this pressure or our emotions create this pressure. And the answer lies in the spiritual definition of stress. Michael Singer, who is a spiritual teacher, in his book, The Untethered Soul, he talks about stress and he defines stress as resisting of life events. So what is stress? It is resisting of life events. And what is the opposite of resisting? Accepting of life events. So if we resist our day-to-day life events, we are causing stress spiritually, okay? So let's understand this a little bit more by taking this example. So say if something happened that we did not like, or say somebody said something to us and we did not like it. A more accepting approach towards this life event is saying that, well, I did not like what they said. I do not agree with the person. It hurts my feelings. So basically accepting the event that has happened and then taking this feeling of hurt or disappointment or sadness or whatever it has created in us, processing this feeling and letting it pass through us. This is the way we accept an event. So what this does is it creates room for response. How can we respond to this stressful situation? Now, the other way to approach the situation is to resist it. So that is by saying, how dare this person talk to me like that? How dare this person did this to me? I do not accept this. I do not let people to treat me like this. I'm going to have to fix this. I do not accept this. So once we don't accept the life event that has happened, what that does is our mind starts creating thoughts that takes us to a reactive mode. And then this person will end up reacting to the situation and saying something that they will regret later. So in turn, the person is creating even more stress. So that is resisting to an event and creating more stress. So this is the difference between resisting and accepting of life events. And if you see, when we are resisting something, what we are actually doing is we are resisting something that has already occurred. So the event has already occurred. We cannot undo that. The person has already said what they wanted to say. We cannot undo that event. We can respond to it, but we cannot undo it. So a lot of times what we are resisting is something that has already occurred in the past or something that has not happened yet. So by constantly obsessing about the past and worrying about the future, what we do is we miss the opportunity to live fully and completely in the present moment. So remember this definition of stress, that it is resisting of life events as we move forward. Now, before we go to part 2 of our presentation, where I'm going to talk about how stress response is created in our body, what happens in our body biochemically as a result of stress, I'll just quickly cover this thing here, that why different people react to similar life events differently. That is to say that why the same stressor is causing stress for one person, but it is not causing stress for another person. Why that happens? Because different people have their own preconceived notions about how things should be. So let us understand this by taking an example of going to a dentist. So for a lot of people, going to a dentist is a regular life event. It does not cause any stress. But for some people, it causes a lot of stress. Why? Because whenever in their childhood or thereafter, they went to a dentist, whatever experience that they had was not pleasant. So now the past impression of an event or their preconceived notion is resisting them to take action in the present. That action is going to the dentist office. All right. So this is a very simple example, but we do this in so many situations of our life. Instead of seeing these past impressions and not allowing them to control our life, what we do is we fall for them. So a better way to live is to see our triggers. What is causing stress for me? What is a trigger for me? And then going back and saying, are there any experiences that have happened because of which I'm getting triggered? And then working through those experiences, processing those, and healing those experiences. What that will do is that will clear our past, and it will help us to live in the present moment more joyously and with less stress. Okay, so now on to part 2 of the presentation, which is talking about what happens in our body when we actually encounter a stressor. So to understand that, we have to go back in time when we were hunter and gatherers. At that time, our body evolved to give a response to whatever stressors we were facing. And the biggest stressor that we had at the time was a saber-toothed tiger. So as soon as we sense the tiger approaching us, our body evolved to create some stress response. Some chemicals are produced in our body. And what that does is it gets us ready for fight and flight. So in a stressful situation, adrenaline is produced in our body. And what that does is it increases our blood pressure. It gets our heart rate up. We start breathing shallow, and that gets us ready for fight or flight. The other thing that happens is the blood from major organs of our body, it moves to the extremities so that we are ready to fight or flight. And what happens, our digestion, it gets affected. That's why a lot of people, they experience stomach problems when they are stressed. A hormone that is produced, which is called cortisol, and what happens is our body, in the presence of that hormone, it starts storing fats and it starts using glucose as primary source of energy. And that is the reason a lot of us, when we are in stressful situations, we feel we fall for sugary foods more because the primary source for energy for our body becomes the glycogen reserves or the glucose. Another thing that happens is our body is kind of becoming more forgetful. Our mind is becoming more forgetful. Our memory is affected. And that is why, we kind of are looking for our keys and our glasses, and we are becoming more forgetful during a stressful situation, because who cares if I remember the names of the president if there is a tiger out there to get me, right? The other thing that happens is our bladder gets overactive. So the body is trying to empty the bladder as quickly as possible so that it's ready for fight or flight, right? That's why we feel the need of going to the restroom more often during a stressful situation. The other thing that happens is our immune system goes to the back burner, because who cares if I can fight with the germs that are in my environment if there is a tiger out there to get me. So that's why we fall sick more often when we are stressed. So all of these responses that our body is producing is to adapt to or to respond to a stressor that is physical, which is a tiger in this example. But now our stressors are not physical. Fortunately, we don't live in an environment where we have a lot of physical stressors. But now our stresses are more psychological. So our stressors are what? Pandemic, deadlines, relationships, traffic, things like that. So what happens during a psychological stressor, the body gives exactly the same response as it is giving in the presence of a physical stressor. So all the stress response that we talked about happens during any stressful situation that we are in. And because we have more psychological pressures now, in a given day, we go from one stressor to the next stressor to the next stressor. So the stress response is constantly going on in our body. It is not stopping. And it goes on and on and on. And that's when we start seeing some symptoms. That's how, the chronic stress shows up in our body. So let's write in the chat box, what are some symptoms that you see when you are stressed? How your body tells you that it is stressed. When you go through a stressful situation, what happens to your body? And if anybody can read from the responses that we are getting.
Someone said racing heart rate goes up.
Yep, exactly. So you see some of the physical symptoms, and if you take all the symptoms, we can divide it into three major categories. Either our body is showing us some physical symptoms, so our heart rate is going up, we are falling sick, or there are hormonal changes that are happening. So physically, the body is showing you that it is stressed. Then there are some emotional symptoms that we see. So a feeling of overwhelm or depression or anxiety or anger. That is also something that we see when we are chronically stressed. And then there are behavioral symptoms that we see. So meltdowns and conflicts and fights in relationships, dealing with people. So if you see these symptoms on a regular basis, know that your body is chronically stressed and you have to do something about it. Now let's talk about the relaxation response. So what happens to our body when we are relaxed? Everything that goes on during a stress response, the opposite of that happens in a relaxation response. So in stress response, sympathetic nervous system gets active. In relaxation response, parasympathetic nervous system, which is our nervous system for rest and digest, it becomes active. So non-adrenaline is produced. And what that does is it brings the heart rate down. It brings the blood pressure down. So we are more relaxed. The blood from the extremities come back to the major organs. So the digestive problems that we were experiencing during a stressful events, they go away. Memory gets better. And most importantly, the immune system start functioning well. And who cannot use a better immune system, especially during a time of a pandemic? So that is what is happening during stress, during relaxation in our body. And so it is very important that we use some of the techniques to induce relaxation. And I'm going to talk about those techniques. But remember one thing, in our body at one instance, either stress response can exist or relaxation response can exist. Both cannot exist at the same time. So if you're going through a stressful situation, naturally your body will produce stress response to counter that situation. What you can do is you can artificially induce relaxation response. So that stress response will stop and relaxation response will take its place. So what are some ways to induce relaxation response? Deep breathing is an excellent way. It is so simple, but it instantly will bring you into relaxation. So when we breathe in deeply and the air goes all the way to our stomach, the vagus nerve that goes all the way to our stomach, it gives the message to the brain that the body is relaxed. And so the stress response stops and relaxation response starts. Another technique, which is called as progressive muscle relaxation. That is to contract our muscles and then relax them. And again, contract our muscles and relax them and create that memory in the muscles of relaxation. So we are going to practice both of these techniques, deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation towards the end. And then some mindful techniques can be mindful walking, connecting to nature, engaging in activities or chores really mindfully. There is another practice that we will practice in our practice today towards the end of the session, which is called as concentrating on your five senses. So that empties your mind and brings you into mindful breathing and experiencing your five senses. So these are some techniques that we will be practicing so that you can experience it for your own self. Now on to the part 3 of the presentation. So before we move to, taking a real life example and seeing how we can address a stressful situation, I wanted to share with you some practices that are helpful for managing stress. Now, there are 2 practices, but before I talk about them, I just wanted to mention that eating right, hydrating our body, exercising every day, sleeping well, these are the basic practices for stress management. And then the practice of self-care and self-love and spiritual practice of meditation, prayer, and gratitude. These are just so fundamental. We do not have time to discuss all of these today, but I just wanted to leave you with these 6 so that you make a note that, if you are lacking in any of these areas in your life, that work on these. These are excellent ways to manage your stress. Now, the practice that I want to talk about, and of course by now you can decipher, you can see what will help us in managing our stress is reprogramming of our past, something that we talked about in part 1 of the presentation. So let's talk about this and understand this with an example, so we are all very clear on this. So let's take an example of this girl who had past 2 relationships, 2 boyfriends who just dumped her, and without any reason, without any particular cause. And so she had this terrible experience in these past 2 relationships. And now she is in a 3rd relationship with this boy. Everything is going fine. There are a few weeks they are into it. Everything is good. And then one day, all of a sudden, she's trying to reach this boy and he's not responding to her. And what happens is instantly, the experiences from those last 2 relationships, they come onto the surface. that wound of abandonment that she experienced in last two relationship, that comes into the surface. And what she does is she comes in the reactive mode, and she calls this person and she tells him that, how dare you can treat me like that? Why are you not responding to my calls? And I don't let people treat me like that, and just lash out on this person. And in the meantime, after a few hours, this boy calls her and he says, sorry, I was not able to get in touch with you. My mom was in an accident and I was with her all day in a hospital. Now this girl is feeling really embarrassed and ashamed. And how we can avoid such a situation, how she can avoid this. If she had worked on her wounds from the past two relationships, if she has processed them, if she has healed them, what would have happened is she wouldn't have brought those wounds to this new relationship, which has nothing to do with those events, which has nothing to do with those wounds. But it is the process of working through these emotions, working through these wounds and healing them, that change our response. So I find this practice extremely important in the work that I do with my clients. And I would highly recommend you that, go back to your triggers, work with somebody, a coach or somebody who can help you with assessing your past, going to your triggers, helping you process them and helping you heal them. This is extremely important in responding to a stressful situation. The second important practice that I want to talk about is being present in the moment. And how can we do that? By just doing the first practice, we automatically do the second practice. That's one way, because once we heal our past, it doesn't come back to haunt us. It frees and it gives us a room to be present in the present moment, because we've already healed the past. So just by doing the practice number one, we are doing practice number two. Then some other ways to be in the present moment is by doing mindfulness practices, by doing some of these relaxation practices. So we are going to do that towards the end of our presentation. Deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, mindfully going through our senses and concentrating on our senses. All of these are going to be very helpful to bring us in the present moment. So now let's summarize the presentation by taking a real life example. So what we will do in this is we are going to see how what we talked about in part one and part two of the presentation and how we can apply that in a stressful situation that we come across in our life. So take the example of this person who has a brand new car. They are driving on the road, very happy in their car, going their way, and then came up to a stop sign. And all of a sudden they heard boom, somebody rear-ended them. And so one way to respond to this is to resist the situation and thinking how somebody can just rear end my brand new car. Do they not know how to drive? Or, just thinking on and on why this situation happened instead of accepting, just resisting the situation. And what that person is doing in the meantime is it's basically bringing the sympathetic nervous system responses. So all those stress responses that we talked about are happening in the person's body. They come out of the car, they see what is the damage that is done, and then they instantly start screaming and kicking and, talking to this person who has rear-ended them in a very harsh manner, or, creating a lot of suffering while doing all of this. So not only the damage has occurred to the car, but there's a lot of suffering that has been created as a result of this reaction. Now, the other approach is when the person got rear-ended, just accepting the situation that this has happened. Although they didn't want this to happen, but this has happened. Now we have to breathe. And as the person breathes, they instantly induce the parasympathetic nervous system. So on that stress response, stop, relaxation response starts. This person comes out of the car, they look at the damage, and then they go and talk to the person, and they see what they can do about it. And they deal with the situation. So this is a way of responding to the situation. So the difference here is there was a pause that was created by accepting the situation and by inducing the stress response. Whereas in first situation, there was no pause that was created. And this happens so quickly that if you don't see it coming, you're going to fall for it. So actively practicing relaxation, actively everyday practicing mindfulness is so important, because once the stressful situation is there, if we have practiced mindfulness, if we have practiced relaxation every day, there is more chance that we will be able to employ that in a situation that is stressful. So we are going to go ahead and practice how to create this pause in our life. And I hope that you take this practice and use this every day in your life. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. I have recorded the mindfulness practice for you. So let's go ahead and practice it now. Hello, my beautiful soul friend. Thank you for joining me to practice relaxation and mindfulness, which will then help us to prepare for meditation. So let's go ahead and get started. Sit yourself in a comfortable position with your back supported and head free. Close your eyes and put your hands on your lap. We are going to take a few deep belly breaths. So breathe in through your nose and take the air down all the way to your stomach and expand your stomach like a balloon. And now breathe out through your mouth as if you're blowing a candle. Beautiful. Now again, take the next breath in through your nose, expand your stomach, and exhale through your mouth and relax into it. And now with this next breath, breathe in through your nose, and at the top of this inhale, just hang on for a couple of moments. And now exhale through your mouth and relax more into it. Now at the bottom of this exhale, just hang on for a couple of moments before you sip the air in again. And now breathe in through your nose. At the top of this inhale, hang on for a couple of moments. And now exhale through your mouth and completely relax into it. Release anything that is not serving you right now. And now, keeping your eyes closed, for next few moments, I want you to scan your body from head to toe. So going through your head, your face, your neck muscles, shoulder, your chest and your back, your arms, your legs, all the way down to your feet. Just feel the most prevalent sensations that you're feeling in your body. Any sensation of discomfort or pain, just bring your awareness to that and breathe into it. If you want, you can put your hand on the site of the discomfort. Gently, you can massage into it. And think of a white, beaming white light going through your head all the way down to your body and flushing that site of discomfort with healing energy. Now do the same for any other sensation that you're feeling right now in your body. Just scan through and see where you feel any sensation of discomfort or pain or any area of your body that is asking for your attention. Our body has a lot of intelligence, and it speaks to us through these sensations. It is when we bring our awareness to these sensations that we are actually listening. And then by breathing into it, by gently putting our hands onto it, massaging it, visualizing a beaming light source of energy, of healing energy surrounding that area, we're actually attending and responding to the needs of the body. Just as when a child needs our attention and we lovingly respond to the child, in the same way we are lovingly responding to the needs of our body. And now I'm going to call out the names of some of the muscles of our body. We're going to contract and relax those muscles to feel even greater relaxation. So keeping your eyes closed, just bring your awareness to your feet. Curl in your toes and create tension in your feet muscles. Tense, 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 and relax. And now see how you're feeling in your feet. And now bringing your awareness to your calf muscles. So lift your legs and point your toes toward your shin and create tension in your calf muscles. Tense, tense, tense. Hold that tension and now relax. And now bringing your awareness to your thigh muscles. Tighten your thigh muscles and push yourself upwards as if you are coming out of the chair a little bit. Create tension here. Tense, 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 and relax. And now bringing your attention to your hip and your stomach muscles. Squeeze your hip muscles and push your belly button in towards your spine and create tension. Tense, 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 and relax. And now bringing your attention to your chest and back. Open your chest and push your shoulder blades back a little bit. Create tension here. Tense, tense, tense. Hold the tension and relax. And now bringing your attention to your arms. Make a fist and create tension. Tense, 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 and relax. And now bring your attention to your shoulders, where we keep a lot of our stress. Push your shoulders in towards your ears and create tension using your shoulder and your neck muscles. Tense, 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 and relax. And now bringing your attention to your face and the back of your head. Squeeze in the eyes, purse your lips, make a face and create tension. Tense, 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 and relax. Now keeping your eyes closed, take a deep breath in and exhale through your mouth and relax completely into it. And now with this next breath, I want you to bring your awareness to your sense of sound. And listen to the most prevalent sound that you're hearing right now. Is it the the music, my voice, birds chirping outside, car passing by, or even the most subtle sound that is of your own breath. And now with this next breath, I want you to bring your awareness to your sense of sight. So even with your eyes closed, see what's the most prevalent thing that you're seeing right now. Is it blackness? Is it light passing through your eyes, through your eyelids? And what is the most subtle sense of sight that's happening for you? Maybe some fine lines, you see some colors or some cells floating around. And now with this next breath, I want you to bring your attention to your sense of smell. So what is the most prevalent smell that you're smelling right now? And what's the most subtle smell? It's the smell of your own body, or the shampoo, or the lotion that you used. And if you don't smell anything, that's okay too. And now with this next breath, I want you to bring your awareness to your sense of taste. So what is the most prevalent taste that is happening for you right now in your mouth? And what's the most subtle? Do you feel the taste of food you had, or toothpaste, or does your mouth feel dry or wet? And now with this next breath, I want you to bring your awareness to your sense of touch. So what is the most prevalent touch that's happening for you right now? Is it your bum touching the chair? And what is the most subtle touch? Is it your hair touching your face? Your clothes touching your skin? And now with this next breath, I want you to bring your attention to all your five senses, all at the same time. So hear what you're hearing, see what you're seeing, smell what you're smelling, taste what you're tasting, and feel what you're feeling, all at the same time. Fire all those five senses, all at the same time. It is by bringing our awareness to these five senses and accessing all these five senses that we access our sixth sense. It is by completely being present in the present moment and accessing the present that we can access the future, and we can create the future. Future is in the making in this present moment. So when we are fully present with all our senses in the present moment, we are grounding ourselves in this moment. And that is exactly where our happiness, our contentment, and our satisfaction resides. Inside of us and in this moment, right here, right now. So I want you to be fully present with all your senses in this present moment. Ground yourself and be with yourself in this moment. And now I want you to think of just a couple of things that you are thankful for. It can be as simple as the air you have, or the food or water, or the people you have in your life, in your relationships, at work, your neighbors, anyone or anything that you are thankful for. Be present with that feeling and completely embrace that feeling and count your blessings. Be happy and be joyful and be present with that feeling in this moment. And now I want you to give a big smile to yourself and take it all the way down to each and every cell of your body. Again, give a big smile to yourself and take it to your body. And now with this centered, calm, grounded, present moment awareness, I want you to gently, at your own time, open your eyes. All right, and now I am ready for your questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and write that in the chat box and we can address them.
Well, it looks like you may have covered everything, Dr. Basaria. I don't see any questions in the chat. Thank you so much. I'm trying to, let's see, get in here. And let's see, I'm going to turn off the, there we go. There we go. Thank you. All right. All right, well, I think that that's going to wrap up our presentation tonight. Looks like we've got somebody that popped into the chat and said, thank you, it was great. I think it's wonderful. I can't wait to watch it again. Thank you for your time, Dr. Basaria. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this program will be up on our website. And please visit us there to see what other adult programs we have to offer virtually, and keep an eye out for what's coming this summer. We've got summer reading going on. We have our book buzzes for adult reading. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact the library. You can reply to the email you were sent if you have any questions, and we will respond to those as well. So if there's nothing else, we will end up, and it looks like my colleague put some information in the chat there. And any last minute questions before we close? All right, I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight to everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening and you're nice and relaxed, and you can take some of the things again into your daily life. And thank you so much, Dr. Basaria. One of the people in the chat has just asked where we can see it again. And Diana, if you would respond to that. We'll have it up on our website, on our YouTube channel in a little while. It won't be immediately, but it will be up. So, all right. Thank you very much. I'm going to say goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who attended the session. And I hope
Thank you so much.
it helps you in your life. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.